And good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone out there in internet land. My name is Rob, and we are back yet for another episode of Magic.tv. My hetero life partner Wade is trying to fight the gremlins to get on the show right now because something's cock blocking him. But today we are guested by a dear friend, magical teacher, and one of the fellow heads of an online Facebook group community who teaches magic online and who has given a very, very interesting outlook to the practice of magic. I've been following his page for some time. I don't see any fluff there, lots of stuff to learn. So without further ado, it's my honor to introduce everyone to our guest tonight, Mr. Marcus Mattern. Hello, Marcus. How are you?
Hello, Robert. I'm doing great. Thank you. And it's Marcus Mattern.
Okay, Marcus Mattern. Sorry about that. So welcome to Magic.tv, your internet and occultism without apologies. And today we're talking all about you. We want to know a bit more about your story, what got you into the occult, what brought you into these practices, how did it all begin, and what led you into forming your group. So take it away to let us know more about you.
Thank you. So I'm part of a new generation of magicians that are coming up from just reading books and being able to train themselves through materials that are available to the public. And in my case, it was books of John Michael Greer that got me started, learning ritual magic, Circles of Power. Yeah, Circles of Power is where it's at. And it was amazing for me just going through that process, learning not just to practice the material as it's been given, but what I really love about Circles of Power is it teaches Golden Dawn magic as this incredibly inventive system that allows you to create your own rituals with their own effects and shows you how ritual design works in a way that I think is very much missing from other traditions that tend to be very traditional. This is how you do it. You say these words, you do these steps. That's the way that it's done. It's the way it's always been done. Even though that's often not the case, even though it's often just somebody in the order invented it last week, they still present it with that same level of authority. And I loved learning Golden Dawn magic in this really fluid, dynamic, inventive, creative, playful way. And being able to go through it and learning these tools such that I could apply Circles of Power to Paths of Wisdom and realize, oh, I have everything in the Circles of Power that I need to navigate the Tree of Life using ritual magic. And so that's what I started doing and initiating myself through the planets and the signs of the zodiac and working my way up through the astrological correspondences of the spheres of the Sephiroth in order to get to Keter, and having these amazing experiences as a result, and having this incredible experience with my Holy Guardian Angel as a result, and then finding Damien Eccles and realizing he did the same thing.
In jail.
In jail, yeah. He was a self-taught magician, found books, including the books by John Michael Greer, was able to create his own magical path using these materials, and then was ultimately able to not only attain knowledge and conversation of his Holy Guardian Angel, but manifest his way out of prison using these tools and using these rituals. And that was incredible confirmation for me that, hey, I'm on the right path. But that was how I got started in terms of the lineage. In terms of my personal story, what made me practice magic, that was being trapped in a toxic relationship where I was afraid to stay and was more afraid to leave. And so that really kept me in a situation where I felt completely trapped. I felt like there were no Malkut, no earthly answers to my problems. And I needed to try something impossible if nothing possible seemed to be working. And so I started practicing ceremonial magic, initially just to become a more loving person, still being delusional and thinking that I could save that completely disastrous relationship. And in the process, I banished that person from my life by doing purification rituals. And that toxic relationship ended so amicably, nobody could believe it. And at that point, I started practicing magic as a skeptic, actually. I had practiced Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, for a couple of years, but I approached it from a psychological, skeptical perspective. And I approached magic initially the same way, thinking, okay, maybe I'll get some psychological benefits, but I'm not expecting anything more than that. Instead, completely supernatural changes to my actual life and inexplicable circumstances started arriving. I'm like, okay, I don't know if magic is real, but I know that it works. So I'm going to keep doing it. And
you don't know if it's real, but it works. It's like, okay, this imaginary handgun doesn't do anything, but when I pointed at somebody, they drop dead. Okay.
That's it. You know, that's literally the experience of magic, of like thinking it's just in your imagination, and then other people start acting in accordance with their imagination without having any clue that you were imagining it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, whoa, okay, I'm interacting with something beyond just my own mind here. I don't know what it is, but it's something is happening. And so I continued practicing. A few months after that, I started having what I call verified gnosis. So when you have communications with spirits and it's practical advice that you can do that leads to tremendous success, or it's information that you can then look up and wow, it's real, or it's a prediction about the future that comes to pass. I've gotten a prediction from a spirit that was 6 months into the future to the day that it was predicted. So the ability to get real verifiable information from spirits is astonishing. And like, that's what really made me understand, okay, this is not just a imaginative or psychological practice. This is a whole occult science that the world doesn't know about. And that led me down a huge rabbit hole of figuring out, okay, how is this real? What does that mean about the world? I have a philosophy degree. This was very disconcerting for me. And it wasn't until I got a book, The Case Against Reality by Donald Hoffman, that really just confirmed a lot of the suspicions that I developed having studied the philosophy of Karl Popper in terms of what science actually is, which is not what science says that it is, and being able to parse that apart and understand, okay, this is what's actually going on behind the scenes of material reality. There's material reality, and then there's all these other layers. And those are explained in the Metaphysics of the Golden Dawn. You have the etheric layer, the astral layer, and the mental layer. And learning how those work and that whole chain of manifestation where things come from potentiality through the universal imagination and concretize in material reality. And when you can start to notice that process, you realize, oh, the world's a mess because of stuff that's going on further up the chain. And when I fix the stuff further up the chain, that makes my own life better. And once I started,
it's fascinating that you mentioned that, because Franz Bardon actually had some intakes on that theory as well. And one thing a lot of people like to ask is, how do you determine if there's something broken above the chain so you can actually start fixing it?
Yes. Okay. So this is where psychic sensitivity becomes so important. A lot of people focus on magical development, and then other people focus on psychic development. And to me, they're just inextricably linked. You can't have a high degree of magic proficiency if you're not also psychically sensitive. And I honestly don't think you can be that effective as a psychic if you don't have enough magical skills to at least place boundaries and borders and project energy in ways that are necessary even to just protect yourself once you become sensitive to a certain degree. So one thing that I emphasize in my courses is learning to be sensitive first to your own emotions. Oh man, am I frozen again?
Yeah, you're frozen again. Just keep talking.
All right, cool. Learning to be focused, learning to be sensitive to your own emotions. Once you become sensitive to your emotions, then you can start to understand, oh, these emotions are not just, ephemeral feelings that I'm usually ignoring. They're actually sources of energy that my body is processing, and they exist within my etheric body. So if I look for my anger, my fear, my grief, my sadness, then I can find them in specific places in my energy body, and they have a specific structure to them. It's like, oh, okay, that's more reality and more real and more up the chain than what I was thinking of before. And then I can start to work with, okay, what is the reflection of this on the astral layer? What are the memories and ideas and events in my life and archetypes that I have attached to this process? And you can start to realize, okay, there's more going on inside of me than I realized before. And you can use that sensitivity to yourself to talk to spirits. And this is something that I teach, is using the body as a means of communication.
Can you give me some examples of that? Because you kind of like tickled my imagination with that.
Oh, absolutely. And so one thing I love about the body is it's kind of like an animal. It's unfailingly honest. And so when the body is angry, you feel anger in the body, you feel the heat, you feel the tension, you feel all of this. Your mind can bullshit you and say, oh, I'm not angry. But your body and all the symptoms are still there so that you can look in the body and say, oh, I'm definitely angry. And you can use that honesty of the body to get more accurate communication from spirits, because when you invoke a spirit, you feel a presence. And the presence is not just in your imagination, it's actually an overall body sensation of like, oh, there's something in the room. And so when you learn to invoke properly and have that powerful experience of energy, you can use that feeling of energy in your body to have a more clear communication with the spirit, because you can ask the spirit a question. You can see how its energy fluctuates in response to that question. And then when you learn to interpret that from the bodily sensations you're getting, I find those answers tend to be the most accurate, tend to be the most verifiable, and that allows you to work most productively with whatever spirit you're invoking.
So basically, one thing you're letting us, our viewers, know is that it's your emotional reaction when you're doing this stuff is kind of like how the spirits respond to you. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's well, it's one way. It works on all levels. The problem is that there's so much astral static at the level of thinking that if you rely on just thinking, you're going to get all kinds of errant thoughts. Stuff is going to get pulled in. Thoughts are associated with the air element. The air element is very quick and very dynamic and ever changing. Water is slower. Water flows. And so if you connect with spirits on a more emotional level, you start to become sensitive to these currents of emotion and the realization that emotion is not just inside of you. Emotion is actually permeating our entire world and everything in it. When you do psychometry, when you pick up an object and it can feel the emotion that it has been stained with, whether that's happy emotions or anger or anything else, then you're accessing this level of etheric energy. And so when you start to become sensitive to emotions, you're becoming sensitive to etheric energies. And when you become sensitive to the energies inside of you, it's easier to start to notice the energies around you and outside of you as well.
Fascinating. Now I have a question for you. You have really done a wonderful contribution with your Esoteric Occult Science and All Things Magic group on Facebook. Now, what I'd like to ask you is what was your original inspiration for putting up that group?
Oh, wow. Yeah. My original inspiration was having made a lot of friends in Damien Echols' Patreon group, honestly. That's where I got started, just because I didn't want to be a magic teacher. I just wanted other people to practice magic with. And unfortunately, the state of the community is such that if you want a community, sometimes you have to make it yourself.
True.
Yeah. And so I just wanted people to practice the LBRP with. I'm like, why is this so hard? And I had a professional Zoom account. I'd already been hosting meetings for another project where I was giving pathworking meditations. And that project drew to a close. And so I have this professional Zoom account. I'm not using it for anything. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to announce on Damien Echols' Patreon group, I'm going to put on an LBRP and I'm going to guide everyone through it. And I'm just going to do this all myself. And initially, one person showed up. But we both had the most amazing time because we could experience the huge increase in energy when you're practicing magic with multiple people. And that motivated us to keep going. And after that, I started having, 3 or 4 people per meeting, and the numbers started going up and just became really successful. And it was through those meetings that people started saying, hey, I will pay you to teach me magic, because they were impressed with my ability to answer questions. And I had no idea of my relative level of expertise versus everybody else when I started doing this. It was only through interacting with other people in the community where it's like, oh, I have answers and they're useful to people. I just got them from reading books. They're publicly available books. But I think about this stuff all the time. I'm just obsessive. I have a philosophy degree because I want to understand what's really going on. And so that allowed me to have a deeper insight into this stuff. Other people appreciated that. And so that's what got me started as a professional magic teacher. It was actually after I was already teaching magic at a professional level that I wanted to expand my own community. And so I started just inviting everyone I knew from the original Patreon group, which was 200 people. And so from that initial seed group, I started finding other people and getting other people in from different occult groups and finding other people on the internet. And then that just grew and grew and grew. And at a certain point, about 2,000 members, if you can make it to 2,000 members in a Facebook group, the algorithm starts pushing you, and then you don't have to work for members anymore. That just feeds you members. And so that's been easy since then, but it's been amazing just going through the process of gathering together as many people as possible just to create the version of the magic community that I want to experience, which is, focused on personal development and spiritual development in any sense. It's helping everyone succeed and helping everyone find the tools that they need to succeed, regardless of what those tools are. If you're practicing grimoire magic, great. If you're practicing witchcraft, great. I just want you to find whatever you need to find to succeed and to flourish. And if we're all in a community where people are helping each other do that, it's going to be the most beautiful community. So yeah, that's what I want.
That's epic. And speaking of community, my dear friend Wade Long is getting attacked by the gremlins, but he's sharing his input via Facebook saying, this is why isolation and prep time is so important. Cities are neck deep in psychic litter, and you're going to be sifting through acres of garbage. That's very true. That if you're going to be doing some magical work, sometimes you got to slow yourself down lest you bring the guck of everyday existence into you. Now, okay, you mentioned that you teach people magic. Now, the question I'm going to ask you is, as a teacher of magic, what are some of the trials that you've gone through? Because I also teach people occultism, and we were talking about it earlier before the show, that there's that unseen burden. Like, are there people you won't teach, or are you open to anyone, or do you have certain like criteria that you need to follow? Like, how does it work like to learn magic with you, Marcus?
Yeah. So who I look for is people that are open to the emotional development side of magic, because I find that sometimes people are like, oh, my emotions are involved in this. No, thank you. And
Mm-hmm.
they're just not my people, because to me, that's telling me as a practitioner, you're not interested in knowing what's going on at the etheric level of reality, which means that I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to be able to teach you effectively. And also, even if you get magic to work, you'll be flying blind, and you're much more likely to be a sociopath if you're not paying attention to what's going on with your emotions, with other people's emotions. So it's not going to be good for anybody if I teach you magic. So I'm really
Mm-hmm.
looking for people that are able to at least look inside their body, see what's going on, face it. They don't even have to do anything with it necessarily, as long as they're aware. That awareness is key, because that awareness of the body and of the emotions is what allows me to get the most verifiable communication with spirits. And so that really helps me to vet who I want to work with, who I don't want to work with. And so if you go to my website, marcusmattern.com, and you book a session with me, we'll have that initial discussion. And I want to answer all of your questions about magic, describe this path to you. If you want to make knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, I'll tell you all about my journey and what that was like, and how and why I want to help that happen for you. At the same time, I'm going to be paying attention to why you want to do this. Are you
Mm-hmm.
emotionally sensitive? Are you aware of the needs of other people? All of these things are really important, because to me, magic is not even just about self-development. It's about developing us as a community, as a culture, being able to connect with other people, appreciate the needs and wants of other people. Again, helping each person succeed, not wanting to dominate or control other people. I find that a lot of that information just becomes so obvious if you talk to someone for even 5 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I set up meetings with somebody, I want to answer all the questions. I want to inspire them. I want to show them what's possible with magic in terms of practical manifestation as well as theurgy. But I really am also checking to see, is this the kind of person that I want having more power in the world? Because ultimately, magic is power. Yeah.
Very true, very true. And also shout out to who you mentioned earlier, Damian Eccles, who's been really bringing a lot of positive, pretty much positive awareness in the practice of magic. I mean, Wade and I have been wanting to get him on the show. We feel that his message is something worthwhile, and we wish him all the best. I mean, I am very impressed by how he practically exonerated himself through the practice of magic, and we need more game changers like that. Now, it's going to bring me now to my next question that I wanted to go to about you being a magical teacher as a whole. Do you have a particular tradition that you say,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to learn Hermetic ceremonial, or are you more just the nuts and bolts of it? Like, okay, this is invoking, this is a spell, this is a meditation. So, like, how does your approach usually work?
I'm very by the book, and by the
Uh,
book, I mean the books that I've learned, which are John McLegree's book. So it's a different stream of Golden Dawn magic. And if you've ever seen my interview with Angela Puca, I talk a lot about the differences between modern Golden Dawn magic that exists outside of the order system, and the order system, which is its own stream of Golden Dawn magic, which is focused on initiations. There's a lot of involvement of the Egyptian deities and the god forms, and it has all of these rituals that only make sense in the context of being in an actual order with a lodge with multiple people to perform multiple roles, and a lot of the ceremonies are designed around this. Solo Golden Dawn practice is totally different, because you don't have any of
mhm,
these tools. But what I love about Circles of Power is that John Michael Greer really goes into detail, breaking down all of the things that you can do as an individual, independent Golden Dawn practitioner, and then seeing how far it can take you. And in the case of that book, it literally takes you all the way up to knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, or
yes.
contact with the higher self. Yes. And so there is no limit to
Non
practicing.
Abramelin, let's make that clear, huh? He's not
Not the Abramelin.
advocating the Abramelin in that
Exactly.
book.
Yes. Yes. So it's a different, totally different ritual. Take some inspiration from the Abramelin. But Damian Eccles also teaches his own techniques and methods for knowledge and conversation, and I teach mine, the ones that worked for me. And so there's different ways of getting to it. It's a state of consciousness. To me, it's a state of consciousness that is available in potential to everybody. It's literally the highest point at which you connect to the universe,
Mhm.
and finding a way to do that. But learning about circles of power and how far you can go as a solo practitioner, that really inspired me. Not only that, but I was able to get to the end of the road. I was able to get to as much map as he provides in those books. And so it just astonished me that you can do so much as a solo practitioner. A lot of people don't know that. And so that's what inspired me to tell other people that were in these groups where I just were making magic meetings and practice magic with people, hey, you can go all the way. You don't need to be in an order system. You don't need permission from anybody. You can figure this out for yourself. And so they wanted to know, well, how did you do it? And so that inspired me to start teaching and to start codifying, the techniques that really worked for me. And again, it was very inspiring learning Damien Echols' story and how he came to a lot of the same conclusions I did, reading John Michael Greer's books, and how he has a similar take on the path of astrological theurgy, as we understand it. And so that's the way that I teach magic is I go to Circles of Power and Paths of Wisdom, and basically all the courses that I teach are based on those books, and just adding in everything that I figured out, everything that I borrowed from other Golden Dawn sources, everything that I found most essential for my own spiritual and magical development, and then putting together a comprehensive course of just like, this is the Golden Dawn tradition that I was initiated into. I was totally free form. It's based on you and your path. And this is also one of the reasons that I teach video courses, because I want people to be able to take this at their own pace. I don't like the idea of somebody being in a group and either the whole group has to slow down to the level of the slowest person, or somebody in there has to push themselves more than is even safe, because magic can break you. Like, people don't understand, like, calling down too much energy, it can be physiologically dangerous, not to mention emotionally, mentally dangerous, to proceed faster than is comfortable for you. So having a video course where you're incentivized to keep up, because we do group meetings and we have these rituals together, but if you fall behind, good. I want you to take this at the pace that works for you and the way that works for you. It's a video course. It'll always be there. And I want you to be able to progress through this path of high magic the way that I learned it. The other thing, too, is I can learn from books because I'm obsessive and I think about this stuff in detail. A lot of people have trouble with that. They struggle with that. And so being able to turn this entire path of high magic into a video course where you can just watch the videos, understand the lessons, see me doing the practices, see me doing the actual rituals, know what they look like, and then know if you're doing them correctly, because so many people get terrified about that. Then really start to dive into it and be like, oh, okay, now I'm experiencing what's on the other side of this. I'm experiencing these spirits. And one of the first things that I teach is teaching people how to talk to angels, because so much of Golden Dawn magic is angel magic. And if you can get verifiable gnosis in your communications with angels, then I become a secondary teacher, and your primary teacher is magic itself, is the angels, is the spirits you're working with.
I really loved Circles of Power. I grew up on that book basically because where I lived, my best friend gave me a copy when we were in like high school, and I pretty much just devoured that book in and out because I liked how John Michael Greer presented the material. But the book, The Paths of Wisdom, does not really get as much, love and a lot as much airtime as as Circles of Power does. So you mentioned Paths of Wisdom. What is the value of that for the aspiring magician, especially if you're coming from the armchair going to the actual practitioner magician?
Yes, absolutely. So Paths of Wisdom is essentially the spiritual sequel to Mystic Kabbalah. A lot of people understand the value of Mystic Kabbalah as being Diane Fortune's treatise on Hermetic Kabbalah that is incredibly valuable. At the same time, she mentions at the end of the book, someday I should write a book actually explaining the 22 paths and their relevance to the Tree of Life. And then that never happened. And so John Michael Greer wrote that book.
Okay.
Props to him for having the courage of just deciding, oh, hey, this was planned. It never happened. It should happen. I'm going to make it exist. And so he wrote this incredible treatise, collecting all of the information that he had available on Hermetic Kabbalah and the 22 paths. And so if you work through it, it gives you all of the meanings and correspondences of each sphere on the Tree of Life and each of the paths. That in and of itself doesn't give you what you need to work with the Tree of Life. That just gives you an idea of what the Tree of Life is like from an academic perspective. You need to pair that with either a pathworking practice that allows you to, in a trance-like state, journey into each sphere and between the spheres, or you need to do something like Circles of Power, where you start to learn the ritual format of the Golden Dawn, and it explains how you can use the hexagram rituals to invoke the Sephiroth. And when you pair these together, it's dynamite. You are able to directly invoke the energy of each of these spheres, and you start to notice the changes in your life that happen. And the way that I describe self-initiation versus initiation in an order, when you're being initiated in an order, somebody who already has the attainment, who already has that state of consciousness, is transmitting it to you and making all the necessary changes to your energetic bodies so that you can experience this sphere, this element. as a self-initiation path, you need to do that yourself. And the way that I recommend is do it until it breaks, do it until you can't do it anymore. Immerse yourself in each of these elements until you start to feel uncomfortable. Immerse yourself in each sphere of the tree of life until you are too much in that sphere, until your life is too mundane because you're too much in Malkut, until you're too intellectual because you're too much in Hod and Mercury, until you're too sentimental and loving because you're too much in Venus and Netzach. Like once you start to push yourself in each of these directions, it's like lifting weights, where on the one hand, you learn how much weight you can lift, and that knowledge is incredibly valuable, but also you're expanding your capacity just by testing yourself, just by pushing that limit. And this is why the Tree of Life is such an inexhaustible path of wisdom, is that the more that you push yourself in each of these categories, the more you expand. And once you go through the entire Tree of Life, guess what? You can do it all over again. You'll expand all over again. Every time I've initiated myself through the Tree of Life, I've had massive changes and expansions in my life as a direct result.
Amazing. You know, like just the fact that you mentioned Paths of Wisdom actually is going to make me dust that off and read that tonight, because I've been pretty hell-bent on Circles of Power. Like if I bust out my copy here, you can see it's like the diary of the half-blooded prince from Harry Potter. It's been well written, noted. I mean, because, you know, like I said, I lived in the sticks for a while, so that's all I really had to work with. Yeah. All right, so that's an interesting original story, origin story, the issue 0. Now we're going to get to the current event state of the show, where I'm going to ask you, Marcus, what do you think about the state of occultism nowadays? I mean, be honest, let us know. Are we on the verge of a new renaissance, or are we about to enter the dark ages? Let us know. And what's your hope for the next couple of years?
So I think both perspectives are accurate from their relative vantage point. I have an incredibly hot take, which is that the actual magic community is different from the magic scholarship community, which is, a lot of people look at the scholarship around magic, and especially all the work that Angela Puka and Justin Sledge have done, bringing like Stephen Skinner. All of these incredible people bringing this incredible knowledge and this traditional knowledge, and also reviving these ancient texts and making them readable and comprehensible to us. That's so incredibly valuable. And also, that's different from the occult science of, okay, but what actually works in real life, in public? What can actually work to help you get results in terms of manifestation or in terms of higher states of consciousness? And the more that I explore this broader sense of the magic community, I've started to encounter people who are highly eclectic or from traditions that tend to get disregarded in much of the magic community. So I know so many chaos magicians that have been able to get tremendous results, even though that's relatively recent, not a huge amount of lore backing it up, but it have been incredibly effective in building a life for themselves and becoming rich in one case, or becoming incredibly successful in their relative areas. And then a lot of the people who are incredible magical scholars don't always have the greatest or most obvious successes. And so I find it important to look at, okay, who's getting magic to work? And that's my first question. And secondarily, I'm asking, okay, what's the tradition? Where does this come from? All this other stuff. I think there's a kind of academic hyper-realism we get trapped in, where we think because it said so in the PGM, that makes it true.
That's another one.
Yeah. And so I'm really interested in, okay, the book says it's true. What are people actually experiencing in real life? And so that's been part of my interest in building the magic community, is for my own sake, I want to know, what are people doing that's working? And I'm incredibly open-minded when it comes to, it can be very traditional. That's amazing. It can be something you invented last week. I don't care. I really just want to see, what results are you getting? What kind of experiences are you having? And I'm friends with multiple multi-six-figure magicians who are able to just be incredibly successful with their method and passing their method on to clients, but they're incredibly eclectic. They've come up with this themselves over the course of decades. And so I think magic is so much bigger than we actually understand. And so when you think about how the magic community is doing, I think on the one hand, if you're only limiting your scope to the most accurate sources, the most traditional streams of magic, then I think that might get narrower and narrower over time. But if
I agree with you on that. Let me interrupt you, because nowadays, if you're not sticking to the tradition, people just love to label whatever you're doing as UPG. right?
Exactly.
And the thing is, let's look at it. At one time or another, everything was UPG.
UPG, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So like and you could even go as far as say chaos magic was UPG. But if
Oh,
you're looking
totally.
at the results, but another thing I wanted to share with you is that kind of gone are the days, like that you don't need to be poor to be a magician, if you get what I'm saying. I mean, like if you could be
Right.
the most you could be the most well-read, you could literally memorize every single Stephen Skinner book that exists. But if you can't put food on your table, I'd be questioning that person's magical ability. You know what I mean? I'm like, on a
Yeah.
fundamental level, you should be able to cover yourself. And if you can't, there's something really wrong there. You get what I'm saying? It's like I can't teach weight loss if I weigh 500 pounds.
Yes.
And I'm going to share with this on online here and with you. One of the reasons I shifted from going really occult scholarly to occult community development and occult events and stuff was because I had a realization years ago that the late Donald Michael Craig, who wrote one of the best books on magic, Modern Magic, when he was on his deathbed or he was up towards his last couple of days, he didn't even have enough money for his own medication. He had to do a GoFundMe. And that kind of stuck. And poor guy, he was a wonderful fellow. But that stuck me because, like, wait a minute. I see modern magic, and it says over 100,000 copies sold, and this guy can't even this legend in the field can't even pay for his medical bills. And I was like, there's got to be another approach to this. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. I think it's something that I learned from Damien Nichols that really resonated with me is the idea that when you're doing magic properly, every part of your life starts to change. And some parts will change easier than others. For me, business has been weirdly easy. And then like other parts of it, I had to do a lot more work and internal change. I'm still getting the results, but I had to put an order of magnitude more work to get results in those areas of my life. And I feel that so many people, because of this, focus on academic sources, are just looking at how traditional what they're doing is, and they're not looking at what the results they're getting are. And that to me is where the real magic development happens of, okay, I'm doing something, it's not working. Let's break it down. This is where my background as a philosopher becomes immensely useful because I understand all this metaphysics. I can look at it at a metaphysical level being, okay, where on the chain of manifestation is this going awry? Am I not feeling my emotions? Am I blind to the etheric level? Is there blockage on the etheric level? Is there something going on the astral level? Is something going on the mental level? I'm not paying attention to my attentions and my attention. Yes.
This makes me, I'm just so compelled to ask you a personal question. I'm sure you get these two questions all the time. Somebody either want to come to you for training or sometimes services. And the most common topics that people come to you for, we will probably and always will be money and love. Am I correct?
Yeah.
It's one of the two, right? Mm-hmm. But I wanted to ask you personally, what's the easier of the two to manifest, money or love?
It just depends on the person. So it's, for whatever reason, I don't put a lot of personal identity in how successful I am. So I can get a ton of money. It can have 10,000 plus people online. It doesn't change how I see myself because it just enables me to do what I wanted to do anyways. It doesn't have value to my ego in and of itself, whereas I put more self-identity in love. And so that's been something where I've gotten a lot of success, but it's taken me a while to get there because I had to work through a lot of issues in order to get through. And these are things where I was blocking my own manifestations, which is one of the reasons that I love being a magic teacher is that I can point to people, hey, this is where you're blocking it. This is where you may be calling in all the energy, but you're not accepting any of the energy that you're calling in. So it's not working. It makes sense. And it really just depends on where are you getting your sense of personal identity from? And the more attached you are to that identity, the more you're going to block manifestations because you don't realize that you are unconsciously attached to your sense of lack. You are putting too much of your sense of self in, I have this thing and I don't want it. I want this thing and I don't have it. I want this thing and I don't have it. And you keep yourself trapped by that cycle because your desire isn't leading to satisfaction. Your desire is leading to more desire. And when you practice magic, you're just expressing your desire in a way where it creates more craving. And so it's not actually helping you. Yeah. And so this is where the intention, the mental plane, where are you going? What is your direction when you're doing this result? If you cannot, okay. One of the things I learned from another magician, Ray Thorne, he's also a professional psychic, is the idea, of course, is getting into that state of course I'm going to get what I want. Of course I'm going to be successful. When you have successfully manifested something, not only does it show up in real life, but it is not surprising. And this is the biggest thing is if I'm surprised by the success of a manifestation, that tells me I didn't do it well enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you've successfully manifested something, it's already true for you in your mind, in your body. It's the most natural thing in the world for you to get what you want. If you feel struggle with the idea of getting what you want, there's some part of you that is not on board, and you might be able to push past it, but you shouldn't have to. You should be able to do the deep internal work to the point where you feel completely worthy and completely deserving, and that it makes perfect sense for you to have the thing that you want. If you're not at that stage, you need to be doing more alchemy. You need to be doing more internal work in order to properly manifest something.
Wow, that's epic, what you just shared. I'm going to be listening to that again during the replay. Our beloved friend, Dr. Jeremy Weiss, the Love Doctor, says results are an important measure of success. Yes, Doctor, just so is your beard. It's such a successful, sexy beard you have. We love you dearly. And Wade is chiming in as he says, there are also a lot of magicians whose achievements aren't tangible. Like they're scaling the aethers or working with this angel or that demon, but they still have issues making the rent. And this is funny because sometimes people tend to mix up the difference between the mystical and the occult experience, because the mystical is pretty much about the technology of your soul. Like you could be more ascended, higher vibration, but you're fucking starving. Versus if you're handling the occult side of things, as Dion Fortune said, and applied by magic, that's more of making things happen in the real world. That's paying your rent. You know what I mean? That's getting the food you need. So that's really epic that you said that. I'd love to pick your brain outside of class. So, all right. That being said, though, I wanted to ask you, do you feel, Marcus, that there will be more quality groups to grow in the next couple of years, or are we going to have a witch-talked Zerg invasion of the planet?
Yeah, it depends on your idea of quality. What I look for in terms of magic development is one, ethics. So just a high standard of everyone being invested and interested in every other person's development and whatever they want to use magic for, and just wanting to support them in that and not being antagonistic toward each other. I feel like a lot of groups descend into like, oh, well, I know more than you. And that's really not the point. There are any number of places that you go on the internet to argue with other people and develop a false sense of self-superiority. I don't think the magic community should be one of them. And I want to have more groups based on the idea of mutual support, based on the idea of practical results. And so that's something that I'm going to be expanding. So I know there's going to be more of it because I'm going to make more of it. And I've been making more of it in my real life in Boulder, trying to build up the magic community by having local meetings and also getting plugged into other places that, we wouldn't consider the magic community because it's not part of Western ceremonial and grimoire magic, but it is people using occult science to get real results, whether that's people in the Kashmir Shaivism community using their techniques, whether it's psychics who are working on psychic development, but that also know how to manifest, that also know how to interact with these things that are going on in these subtle levels of reality.
Or indigenous shamanic healers.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I got something to share with you. I wanted to ask your opinion on this because I really see you as somebody who really hands-on these things. What does the role of the genius loci play in your magic practice? Is this something you adhere to, or is this something you just brush aside?
So genius can have different different meanings depending on who's talking. Can you explain your interpretation of
the genius loci is just like the sentience of an area. It's the conscious, because this is something like I was born in San Francisco, okay? Yeah. And I've noticed every time I visit San Francisco, my magical batteries just supercharge. Okay, I can feel that there's something really, really potent there. And then when I go on a plane to visit my mother in another town in the States, I won't mention where, that place has got almost next to no genius loci. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like you don't feel it. Like there's no the consciousness of the area. Like I've noticed in my travels, there are certain places that you could feel the spirit of the area, and it fuels your magic. And I've been to places where ain't no magic happening here. You're gonna get burnt at the stake. So I wanted to ask: is this something you personally adhere to? Are there places you go to amplify your magic, or do you just make it work wherever you go?
I make it work wherever I go, just because I've wanted to, and I've been able to develop serious enough shields. I find that when it comes to psychic development, most people have issues either opening their third eye or keeping it shut. And fortunately and unfortunately am of the group that has trouble opening it. I've developed my senses to a tremendous degree, but at the same time, I still have an easy way of like closing myself off to outside influences. So I feel that you can be more exposed to be more open to the genius loci of whatever area you are in. At the same time, different areas have different vibes. So Boulder is a tremendously magical town. It's actually called the Boulder Bubble because people are so different here that it's so like mystical, and and a lot of it's new agey and a lot of it's junk. But there's more attention to energy. There's more attention paid to spirits. There's more credence given to that side of reality than there are in most of the places in the U.S. And so I'm really fortunate to live here. And I feel like this area really charges and nourishes spiritual development in a way where I feel like other areas will antagonize spiritual development, whether that's the people who live there or whether that's the spirit of the land just not liking humans doing magic on it or whatever it is. Then I feel certain areas are more conducive, and they're more conducive to different strands of magic too. So it's really important to find the place that you fit in. And this is one of the things that I love about magic, is that the more you do it, the more you start to fit into the world, the more you figure out where you should live, who you should be around, all the things that make your life make sense, start to align themselves through synchronicities when you start to have a serious program of magical development.
Amazing. All right, so now we're going to go to the coveted favorite segment of everybody out there, what we call the Occultex segment of the show. And this is where you, Marcus, can teach us whatever you want. And it could be anything. We do want to learn something from you because you obviously are a teacher. But since we just have your good-looking face and audio, we're going to make the most out of that right now because the gremlins are here. So, Marcus, what do you have for us today? What can we learn from you today?
Yes. So today we want to work on an energy exercise to build that felt sense of energy in the body, which I feel is missing from a lot of magical development, being able to sense what energy feels like inside of you. And then we're going to expand out of it to how energy feels just outside of you. And once you start to get a felt sense of how energy feels moving through you and around you, I want you to pay attention the next time you do ritual. Where is the energy? How is it moving? What does it feel like? How does it register on my psychic senses? What color is it? Does it have a smell? Does it have a taste? Does it have a texture? The more that you develop your psychic senses, the more effective your magic will be, because you're not trying to run a mile while blindfolded. You're actually paying attention to your surroundings, and you're actually in conversation with the universe rather than just talking. I found that magicians can be very good at talking to the universe and not so good at listening. So this will be a talking exercise because we're going to move energy, but it's also going to be a listening exercise where you're trying to feel the energy as much as possible. So are you ready to get into it?
All right, let's do it.
All right, sweet. So deep breath in and out. And breathing in, feel a single point of brilliant gold light shining in your heart. Breathing in again, feeling this point of golden light becoming a sphere surrounding and saturating your heart. Place your palms together in front of you. Breathing in again, just feeling that brilliant golden light shining in your heart, the Tiferet center, the sun center. Now on the in-breath, you're going to slowly move this golden energy in your heart into your right shoulder, into your right bicep, into your right elbow, into your right forearm, and into your right hand. Breathing in, feeling the energy move. Breathing out, moving the energy through your left palm, your left forearm, your left elbow, left bicep, left shoulder, and back into your heart. Breathing in again, moving the energy from your heart into your right palm. Breathing out, moving the golden energy through your left palm back into your heart. One more time, breathing golden energy through the arm into the right palm. And Breathing out, moving the energy through the left palm back into the heart. Now I want you to separate your palms by just a couple inches. And I want you to feel the golden energy moving through the space, the empty space, the medium between your hands. This is also a part of your expanded body, your expanded self. Breathing in, feeling the energy entering the right palm. And breathing out, feeling the golden energy move through the space between your palms into the left palm and back into the heart. Now widen the gap between your hands again and breathing into the right palm. Breathing out, moving the energy through the empty space, feeling it move into the palm and into the heart. See what the energy looks like, how it shines, the golden color, all the psychic senses, and now spreading the palms apart again and breathing into the right palm. Breathing out, moving it through the space into the left palm, into the heart. Spreading your palms apart wider. Feeling with intensity all of the energy moving through all of the space. Breathing into the right palm. Moving the golden energy across the space into the left palm. Into the heart. Making the palms wider apart. Breathing into the right palm. And through the space into the left palm. Into the heart. Now spread your palms apart as wide as you can. Really test yourself. Breathing in golden energy from the palm, from the heart into the right palm. And seeing it move through all the space into the left palm and into the heart. Feel how the empty space between your palms becomes a part of your body, becomes a medium through which you feel and sense and move energy. And now bring the palms back together. Breathing in golden light from the heart into the right palm. And into the left palm, into the heart. Now clap your hands together once loudly. And this completes the ritual. Thank you.
Whoa. That's really good for teaching people to be sensitive of the subtleties of energy.
Yeah.
I don't know. You're a divorcee too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I teach people that I tell them that I'm very thankful for of my ex-wife, I was able to pick up on changes on her energy. Because every time her energy would shift, I'd start getting nauseous. It's because usually it doesn't shift from normal to a high. It's usually from a normal to a low. So I'd say, oh, do you want to have let's have Burger King tonight. And then her energy would immediately shift. And they'd be like, why did your energy shift? You know what I mean? So that's one thing I'm very thankful for, because by me learning that ability of being sensitive to the shifts of energies, it's allowed me to have more empathy for people. So this kind of practice is helpful for letting people understand when energies are subtly being moved around them.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're interested in theurgy, if you're interested in knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, this is part of that journey when you are able to sense energies within the space around you, within the environment around you, within other people. You're starting to understand, oh, I'm not just this one limited individual person that is definitely going to die and stay dead forever. I am part of this entire living world, and I'm actually not a person inside the world. I am this entire world inside of a person. And the more that I start to become sensitive to and wake up to the ways that I am intimately connected with my surroundings, the more that I start to develop this expanded sense of self. And to me, that is a point of coronation with the Holy Guardian Angel, is this catalyst moment where your mind blows open and you experience the entire world around you as being internal and inside of you. and that gives you the insight and the power and everything else that you need to start living in alignment with your true will and fulfilling your greatest purpose.
That was amazing. So, Marcus, do you have any workshops, lessons, activities you want to plug to our audience? Because we're really thankful for everything you taught us today.
Thank you. Yes. So my course on the Tools of Magic, the spring semester for 2025 is getting ready right now. It's going to launch on January 25th of 2025. You should go to marcusmattern.com and click the link to book an initial session with me. We'll talk all about magic. I'll answer all of your questions. Once we answer your questions, I will set you up with everything you need to join the course. When we start with the Kabbalistic Cross, we spend an entire month learning the Kabbalistic Cross, because most people do it without really sensing energy, without really moving energy like we were doing just now. And I want to make sure that everybody who performs the Kabbalistic Cross understands what a powerful practice it can be, even just as a standalone 1-minute ritual, and to also understand the correspondences, the fact that there are elemental correspondences and correspondences of the Sephiroth, and there's so much depth in this one little practice, even though it just takes a minute. And then I also find people complain about not having the time or the energy to do magic. It's a 1-minute practice. You can do it every day. And if you are able to do at least some magic every day, you will become a magician. If you stop doing magic, you're going to stop being a magician. But if you can do, at least a small version, at least a minute, you can use that as a seed to build a whole practice. And pretty soon you'll build up to bigger rituals. And then the Tools of Magic, we build up to the etheric temple, creating a whole Golden Dawn temple around us, and then using that to consecrate the tools of magic, the pentacle, the cup, the sword, and the wand, and then using those tools to self-initiate ourselves into the elements of air, water, fire, and earth. And going through this process, you'll just gain so much depth and knowledge of each element. At the same time, these will radically transform your life in meaningful ways. Every single one of these self-initiation rituals that I did, even just for the recording, changed my life in some significant way. I've gotten astonishing results from my clients. I've had 18 students for the first semester, 18 students for the second semester. It's been astonishing to see the response and how many people are willing to join in and practice real magic and learn Golden Dawn magic at a high level. And once you complete the Tools of Magic, I have a follow-up course on the Path of Ascension that leads you through the entire Tree of Life, the entire Hermetic Kabbalah, initiating you into each of these Sephiroth the way that I initiated myself, so that you can reach the point of attaining the knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel. So if you want to get started with that entire journey into magic, go to marcusmattern.com, book a session with me.
That's amazing. So anyhow, Marcus, thank you so much for being with us. Don't go anywhere. You're still going to stay on the show afterwards. I'm going to thank you. But we're going to announce we have our last episode for 2024 this coming Sunday, and we're going to let the world see who it is. So Marcus, stay put. Don't go anywhere. Once again, thank you, Marcus, for joining us here at Magic.tv. You are indeed a scholar and a gentleman. Everyone, this is our final episode next week of Magic.tv, and here's our special guest.